各位线上的观众大家好，在此祝福大家新年快乐，事事如意。最近看到一篇文章，谈的是前名主播李涛先生现在在做的事。李涛先生现职为关怀文教基金会的董事长，长期为偏乡孩童教育奔走。2013年，李涛主持了新节目《善根台湾》，走遍台湾各地探访偏乡孩童，拍摄致力于翻转教育的教师故事，并推出善根台湾、热血老师、翻转教育等节目，发掘了偏乡热血教师故事，且关怀文教基金会长期认养偏远地区的中小学清寒学生，并持续补助其奖学金。离开电视界后，有一段时间，李涛先生不是在南投山上，就是在台东海滨。睡在哪里呢？不是乡间民宿，就是学校教室。吃些什么呢？不是营养午餐，就是面包馒头。去干什么呢？不是跟着农夫下田，就是跟着老师去找中辍生。他的太太前名主播李艳秋说，李涛每次从偏乡回来，都诉说着一个个亲身探访的美好动人的故事。他分享一个靠营养午餐度日的家庭，妈妈在孩子提着饭菜回家时，用手扶起孩子低垂的头；一个双手卷曲、患脑部麻痹的母亲，捧着卷成长条的铜板，要他拿给需要帮助的人；一个没有书桌的孩子，跟他分享唯一的一本课外读物；一个老师每月拿出1/6的薪水让孩子买书；一个得了脑瘤的导演卖了5栋房子，带着他拍的3D 影片放给山里的孩子看。他们在辛苦的生活中从没有放弃人性的美善，在残酷的环境里始终抱持对未来的希望。每个故事清楚地标示着台湾之所以美丽，因为最美的风景是人。是的，台湾最美丽的是人。大部分的人也都想为他人做些什么，但也有部分丑陋的人，丑陋的不是外表，而是心。李涛先生说，他以前总是在挖掘真相，彰显是非对错的价值，费尽了力气拖住流逝的道德信仰。现在他发现根本不需要找回台湾的价值，因为他们从来就没有消失过，只不过他们不存在在政治的殿堂上，而是结结实实的活在穷乡僻壤及山巅水崖。他要做的是呈现真相，让台湾的善良、诚实及草根价值能被看见、被传扬、被扩散，进而产生由下而上的气流，带动整个台湾翻转。是的，台湾真的有很多美丽的人、美丽的团体，默默在为台湾付出。很多感动的故事每天都在发生，只是你不知道罢了。现在让我来介绍一个团体——太极门气功养生学会。
它不只是人类最古老的运动，更超越运动。从心灵层次提升身心的能量，古老门派师徒一脉，传承太极门优质文化，实现身心灵全方位的健康。师父引导弟子性命双修，练气 强身健体，修心养性，净化心灵，以达心气合一，返璞归真，明心见性，天人合一的最高境界。它是一种生活的修行，从愿意改变自己开始，找到圆满人生，阴阳平衡的智慧。
1、2、3，太极门 Energy Family。
行脚全球，
鼓起！
参与3000多场国内外文化展演，拜访世界101个国家，200多个城市，举办超过2万场次公益讲座，在海内外300多所各级学校推动爱与和平人权教育，分享爱与和平的理念，化解世界的干戈，启动良心时代运动，让良心时代的蝴蝶效应风行全球200个国家，超过3000个单位共同响应。启动良心的循环，凝聚成强大的能量，改变世界。转动世界向上向善。也为自己开创更美好的人生。
守护良心，快乐团结，耶！
太极门是古传气功武术修行门派，承传道家心源，蕴含人类最高的哲学思想。太极门也是一个国际性的公益文化团体。当代掌门人洪道子博士在1966年成立了太极门气功养生学会，在世界各地共设有15处的道馆，传授弟子身心灵平衡养生之道，数万家庭受惠。太极门师徒一脉相传，以师徒传承方式，将太极门文化武学艺术展现在世人面前，传递文化真善美的价值，散布良心、爱与和平的理念。50余年来，师徒自力自费，走访全球5大洲、101个国家、300多个城市，进行3000多场文化展演与交流，被誉为国际和平亲善大使。这样一个被4任总统及国际上肯定的气功武术修行文化团体，居然在民国85年被政治整肃，因为一个滥权的检察官创造了一个无中生有的假案，被凌迟超过了25年，财产还被拍卖，至今仍未平反。让我们看看真相是什么。
In 1996, largely for political reasons, the government cracked down on religious and spiritual movements accused of supporting opposition political parties. The campaign also targeted Taiji men, although it had not taken political sides. On December 19, 1996, Taijimen facilities were raided and Hong was arrested. He and his wife's assets, including private holdings not connected with Taijimen, were frozen. These actions were carried out upon orders of Taipei Court Prosecutor Ho Guanren, who developed a personal vendetta against Hong and Taijimen, and was later recognized by Taiwan's Control Yuan, the body entrusted with checking illegal activities by public officials. Prosecutor Ho promoted a self-help association of so-called victims of Taijimen, which was found by the Taipei District Court to be a false organization whose leaders had created bogus claims. The court also found that there were no victims. On April 15, 1997, Prosecutor Ho indicted Hong, who was freed on bail on May 26th, his wife and 3 Taijimen members for operating a fraudulent cult. Ho even accused Hong of raising goblins, something which is totally foreign to Taijimen's practices. From his public statements, it looked like Prosecutor Ho was the one who really believed in goblins. Between April and June 1997, Prosecutor Ho wrote to state and local administrations ordering the dissolution of Taijimen, and even that water and electricity supplies to Taijimen facilities in Taipei be cut. The Ministry of the Interior and local governments later annulled these orders and declared them illegal, as no decision had yet been rendered against Hong. In fact, Prosecutor Ho's case eventually collapsed. On September 25, 2003, Dr. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all charges by the Taipei District Court. On December 13, 2005, the High Court of Taipei confirmed on appeal the first-degree verdict favorable to Taijimen. On July 13, 2007, the Criminal Division of the Supreme Court of Taiwan pronounced the final acquittal of Taijimen defendants, declaring them innocent of all charges. Compensation for the wrongful detention was given to Hong and his co-defendants. However, a byproduct of Prosecutor Ho's ill-fated actions remained. Instigated by Prosecutor Ho, the National Tax Bureau accused Hong of tax evasion and issued tax bills for the years 1991 through 1996. What was the basis of these claims? As it happens in most spiritual movements, members of Taijimen, who are called Dizi, offer money as a gift to Hong, whom they recognize as their shifu, or master. These gifts are included in so-called red envelopes. The National Tax Bureau claimed that the content of the red envelopes should not be considered as a gift, but as a tuition fee members pay for receiving training in a so-called cram school, meaning a school where students engage in intensive study of a subject for a short period of time. Gifts are not taxable, while cram schools' tuition fees are. In Taiwan, there are many Qigong and martial arts organizations, and none has ever been taxed for gifts given to their masters. The Ministry of Education in Taiwan, which has direct regulatory authority over cram schools, declared 3 times, from 1997 through 2000, that Taijimen is not a cram school. Taijimen is indeed not a cram school. In 1999 and 2000, both Taiwan's finance minister and deputy finance minister publicly stated that since the Taijimen tax prosecution derived from a criminal case, if Hong and his co-defendants will be acquitted in the criminal court, then the tax claims would be withdrawn as well. However, this did not happen. Hong and his co-defendants were acquitted of all criminal charges. Yet the National Tax Bureau continued to claim that the money in the red envelopes was a disguised cram school tuition fee and maintained the tax bills. Note that the 2007 Supreme Court decision that acquitted Hong and his co-defendants from all criminal charges explicitly stated that they were not guilty of tax evasion. In 2002, following instructions by the Ministry of Finances, the National Tax Bureau conducted a random survey among Taijimen Dizi to determine whether they regarded their contributions as gifts or tuition fees. All the 206 Dizi who responded indicated that they considered their contributions as gifts. However, the Tax Bureau declared that only 9 respondents had clearly indicated that their contributions were gifts. The statement was false, but the Tax Bureau refused to release the answers to the survey. Based on the Bureau's false statement about the survey, the Ministry of Finances refused to rectify the tax bills against Hong and Taiji Men. They appealed to administrative courts, and Taiwan's Supreme Administrative Court ruled in favor of Taiji Men on August 6, 2009. On July 17, 2010, the manipulation of the survey was exposed at a public hearing in the Legislative Yuan, i.e., Taiwan's parliament. Later, the National Tax Bureau agreed that a new open survey should be carried out. This happened only in 2011, and results were disclosed in 2012, revealing that there had been 7,401 respondents, and all had answered that they regarded the content of the red envelopes as gifts. The National Tax Bureau had promised to be guided by the results of the survey, yet they reacted by proposing to consider 50% of the money received in the red envelopes as gifts and 50% as tuition fees. This was obviously not consistent with the unequivocal results of the survey. Taiji Men thus started another long journey through Taiwanese courts, supported by legislators and other public authorities, and by human rights organizations throughout the world. From this long and painful struggle, they emerged victorious. In 2018, the Supreme Administrative Court ruled that the content of the red envelopes should be treated as gifts rather than as tuition fees. The basis of the 20-year persecution of Taiji Men by the National Tax Bureau had finally been removed. Unfortunately, this was not the end of Taiji Men's tribulations. The National Tax Bureau had initially alleged tax evasion for 6 years, from 1991 to 1996. After the 2018 decision by the Supreme Administrative Court, it agreed to reduce the tax bills for the years 1991, 1993, 1994, 1995, and 1996 to zero. But based on the claim that for 1992, a decision had been rendered by the Supreme Administrative Court in 2006 and was final, it maintained the tax bill for 1992, including interest. Both the Dizi and the public opinion in Taiwan understood that this was a political vendetta after Taiji Men had publicly proved the National Tax Bureau wrong. Clearly, what happened in 1992 was not different from what happened in the other years, and justice would have mandated to deal with it in the same way. Patently wrong decisions can always be revised if justice has to be served. The tax authorities treated Taiji Men as a cram school and taxed it accordingly. Since the finding of fact was incorrect, the application of law was wrong as well. Therefore, the incorrect court order should not be executed. For example, when you clearly know that a person is wrongfully convicted and sentenced to death, you should not execute the person. You should try to correct the mistake and uphold justice. If the person is killed as per the sentence, then he is unjustly killed by the government. Now that the tax authorities have admitted their mistakes and the criminal court has ordered state compensation, it is unjust for the government to auction the assets of Taiji Men's leader. If it does, that is theft of his property. No appeal by Taiwanese or international politicians, scholars, or human rights organizations stopped this vendetta. Not even courts of law were heard. On May 5th and July 23rd, 2020, Taipei High Administrative Court wrote twice to the National Tax Bureau of the Central Area, asking them to treat 1992 as the other years were treated. All this was to no avail. In August 2020, properties belonging to Hong were seized and auctioned, then confiscated after the auction was not successful, despite massive peaceful street protests in Taiwan and appeals by international NGOs.
跟李涛先生以往正义的理念相仿，太极门以亲身经历在挖掘真相，彰显是非对错的价值，希望台湾的法税制度能改革，政府重视赋税人权，良心跟爱台湾的心是他们前进的动力。纵然国家如此对待他们，太极门掌门人洪道子博士仍一本初衷，带领弟子一起在台湾及世界5大洲弘扬爱与和平的理念，并落实做到。 还有推动良心时代运动，让弟子们懂得发挥一己之力，做有意义的事，创造人生无限的价值。最后，请大家一起来聆听《世界之爱》这首歌，并观赏太极门师徒这20多年来的行脚及对世界贡献的影片。希望政府能立即撤销太极门的违法税单，归还太极门的修行圣地。今天非常感谢大家的收看，祝福大家新年新气象，身体健康，万事如意。我们下次见。
Hong.